In a Midwestern scrap shop sometime around 2003, a man paid roughly $14,000 for what he believed was a tarnished trinket. He was certain it was worth more melted than whole. For nearly a decade, he tried to sell it for scrap. Every buyer laughed. Every offer fell short. The torch waited on his workbench, cold but always ready. Inside that small ornament, sealed behind enamel and diamonds, slept a watch made for a Russian empress. But here's what most people don't understand. The real story isn't the theft of history, it's how close history came to being erased for grams of gold. The story begins in St. Petersburg in 1887, in a workshop that smelled of beeswax and warm gold. Carl Fabergé, jeweler to the imperial court, had been commissioned by Tsar Alexander III to create an Easter gift for his wife, Empress Maria Feodorovna. It was the third egg in what would become a tradition, 50 objects made over 30 years, each a small universe of enamel, diamonds and sapphire. This particular egg was modest by Fabergé's later standards, about 3 inches tall, yellow gold, ribbed with rose-cut diamonds, resting on 3 small lion paw feet. Inside, a surprise, a lady's watch by Vacheron Constantin, lifted from its case and set on a stand of gold so the empress could draw it out like a flower. She received it. She kept it. Through war, through births, through funerals, the egg stayed close to her, a constant the size of a child's fist. And for 30 years, it remained where it belonged. In the Anichkov Palace, in the private rooms of a dynasty that believed it would last forever. Then came 1917. The Bolsheviks took the Winter Palace. They took the jewels. They emptied the vaults of the Romanovs and shipped the contents west, where they were sold in lots to pay for grain, for weapons, for revolution. The Fabergé eggs were scattered across Europe and sold cheap, traded between dealers who did not always know what they held. 43 of the 50 Imperial Easter eggs survived. 7 did not. This egg was one of the missing. It surfaced once, briefly, at a sale in New York in 1964. The auction catalogue called it a gold watch in egg form case. The buyer paid about $2,000. Then it vanished again, into a private collection, then into silence, then into the strange undertow of objects whose names have been forgotten by the people who own them. By the time it appeared on a folding table at a Midwestern bric-a-brac market, no one alive in that room knew what it was. A scrap dealer paid roughly $14,000 and carried it home. He was not a fool. He had a careful eye for gold and a sound sense of weight. He knew the diamonds were real. He knew the workmanship was old. But he was a dealer, not a historian, and his trade ran on a simple calculation. Buy under melt, sell over melt, keep the difference. So he weighed it. He calculated the gold content. He calculated the value of the small diamonds, picked from their settings. He carried it to 3 different buyers, hoping one of them would clear him a small profit. None did. The melt price of the gold in those years hovered just below what he had paid. Every buyer told him the same thing. Too gaudy, too small, too odd. The settings were not worth saving. The piece, as a piece, was worth nothing more than the weight of its parts. So he kept it. For nearly a decade. He stored it in a steel safe in the back of his workshop, beside other broken jewelry waiting for the torch. He took it out every few months and tried again. He called scrap buyers in Chicago. He called gold houses in New York. He carried it to coin shows and antique fairs across the country. Each time, the answer came back the same. The math did not work. Not yet. Not quite. Not by the small margin he needed. In the trade, art recovery specialists have a grim word for what happens next after a dealer finally agrees to the math. They call it the melt, the torch, the crucible. the patient erasure of an object whose story no one in the room remembers. By 2012, the egg had been days away from the melt more than once. And here is the cruel mercy of that math. It was the only thing keeping the egg alive. By the spring of 2012, the dealer had run out of patience. The price of gold had climbed steeply. The math, finally, was beginning to work in his favor. He laid the egg on the workbench one last time. The torch was clean, the crucible warm, the tongs within reach. He decided to give it one final evening before morning. That night, in his kitchen, he opened a laptop and typed 2 words into a search engine. Egg. Vacheron. He had remembered the small inscription on the watch movement inside, the only typed word on the entire object. It was the smallest possible thread, and he pulled it. The first result was a 2011 article in The Telegraph. The headline asked whether the Third Imperial Easter Egg, missing for nearly a century, might still exist somewhere in the world. The photograph beside the article showed his egg, the same paws, the same diamonds, the same small watch. He sat in his kitchen for a long time. But surely, you might think, there must be some safeguard for objects like this, some watchful network of museums and auction houses that catches treasures before they slip into ovens. And you would be right. There is. Catalogues, archives, photographs from imperial inventories, hallmarks, workshop stamps. The science of authentication has never been more precise than it is today. Here's the crushing truth. None of it works without someone, somewhere, asking the question, without a search, without a stranger typing 2 words at a kitchen table. The system is brilliant, and it is helpless until a human being decides to look. Within weeks, the dealer had carried the egg to London, to Wartsky, the small Mayfair firm that has handled Fabergé's work since the 1920s. Kieran McCarthy, the firm's director, examined it on a velvet tray. He compared it to a photograph taken in the Anichkov Palace in 1902. The same egg, on the same paws, with the same watch. He checked the hallmarks. He checked the workshop master's stamp. He looked up very quietly and confirmed what the dealer already knew. It was the Third Imperial Egg. It had been missing for 112 years. It was worth, by any honest valuation, around $33 million. The dealer had spent a decade trying to destroy it. McCarthy later said something that has stayed with me. We were a phone call away from losing it forever. One willing buyer at melt price. One impatient evening with the torch already lit. The egg survived, not because anyone protected it, but because the market briefly refused to cooperate with its destruction. But let us step back from the mechanics of this one rescue and ask ourselves what we still do not have. 7. Imperial eggs remain missing. The cherub with chariot egg, last seen in a 1934 sale in New York. The Necessaire egg, last seen at a London dealer in 1952. The Royal Danish egg. The Alexander III commemorative egg. The mauve egg. 2 others scattered into the same long silence. Most experts assume at least one has already been melted, perhaps 2. We will never know. This is what we lose when an object like this disappears. Not the gold. The gold is only gold. What we lose is the small specific fact that a man named Fabergé in 1887 set a watch inside a shell of enamel because he wanted an empress to smile on Easter morning. We lose the hands of artisans whose names no one wrote down. We lose the breath of a woman who lifted this object on a holiday and felt loved. That is the thing the torch cannot recover. That is the thing a search engine, just barely, did. Somewhere right now, perhaps on a shelf in a small shop, perhaps in a drawer in a quiet house, perhaps in a steel safe behind some unremarkable workbench. One of the 7 may still exist. Wrapped in tissue, mistaken for costume, weighed in grams, waiting for a buyer who finally agrees to the math, or for a stranger who finally types 2 words on a quiet evening. If this story moved you, if you believe that beauty and history are worth protecting, please share it. The next Ig is waiting, and it may not be so lucky.